Trish and Sandy, thank you for your question. So as I want to point back to what I said before, with growth and being a native here, I've seen the changes in growth and some great things that growth brings. And one of the biggest things is the people, diversity, and people with different passions, and they're excited about Apex, North Carolina. So that's a great thing. On the other side, growth does bring some challenges for us. And working as a police officer for 29 years, I've seen that affect us in a negative way with traffic congestions and schools being overcrowded and things of such. But with that, we have to understand that growth is constant, change is constant, and we just have to figure out how do we adapt to it? How can we capitalize on that while at the same time maintain the quality of life for our citizens? And with that, I think it needs to be a multifaceted approach to where different sides come to the table together, and let's look at what's the best interest for Apex, short term and long term. Because again, let's face it, we're attractive, so we have to really understand that that's not such a bad thing, and come together at the table and let's work on a clear vision and objectives that's going to help us maintain this quality of life that is so attractive to everyone. So I'm right there in the middle, welcoming both sides to sit down at a table and let's work together on this and figure it out.
Trish asks you to please disclose any relationship, personal, business, or campaign support that you have with any developers.
I don't personally have any relationships with any developers that I'm aware of that have projects with the town. I would have to be presented with name specific. I know a lot of people in this town. Again, I'm a native, and there are many people here that I know that have maybe presented projects to the town that have been successful, and those people have had a long time in this town that have done great things for the community. So that would be a question that I would have to take on with specifics as far as, who's involved. My thing I would like to say is I like working with people. It's not about just developers, it's working with people who have the best interests of the town in mind and have a heart for this town. So I will continue to do that no matter what label is on a person. I just want to make sure that we're all in this together. And I believe that once we come with the same heart, same passions, although we may disagree, if we can just agree on sharing that passion for the town, we'll continue to do great things and maintain the peak of good living for this town.
Anonymous summarizes, what can the town council really do to manage this growth and ensure that services, including roads, keep up with it and that it doesn't destroy the small town feeling of the place? Trish Burns also wants to hear your thoughts on growth versus preservation of the small town feel.
Well, again, it's a challenge to try to maintain the small town preservation, although I think we can do it. We just have to bring the experts to the table. We have to bring citizens to the table. And what I encourage and challenge all citizens to do, please get involved. We can't make a vision. We can't create a vision. We can't create goals and objectives without community engagement. So that includes everyone in the town, just not one segment of the town, everyone. So with that, bringing everyone to the table, and let's work together to figure it out. And I know that's been a consistent message I've presented in all my questions, but it's just that important because united we stand. And once we do that, we'll go back to what's important for Apex. So to get back to the question, we have to figure out what's best for Apex, North Carolina, because I believe we can be a model for the rest of the United States. This is how we do it. This is how you do it. This is how you manage growth. This is how you take growth and capitalize on it while at the same time keeping your identity, and that's Apex. So also, with me being the mayor of the town coming up, I'm a retired guy, so I have time on my hands. And what I want to do at that time is work with municipalities that, are connected to us, Cary, Holly Springs, Fuquay, Raleigh, and work well with those leaders and say, this is not just an Apex problem. This is a county problem. This is a regional issue that we need to deal with. So with that is once we come to the table and we network, we can advocate for our towns and go to state and federal and get the resources, get the funding that's necessary to help us manage this growth. In particular, I met with a congressman just the other day, and one of the issues that we're facing again is our traffic congestion. So how do we do that?
I think the biggest issue is how do we manage and account for the growth that's coming to Apex. The town of Apex, as a government, is responsible for a large swath of land between 540 out to the county boundary, and this is an area that's going to be developed over the next 10 years. And the biggest challenge for us, I think, is how do we do that in a responsible way that achieves some of our other goals. And I think there's to accomplish that, we need to make some institutional changes in how we do development, and I'm referring to revising how the planning board works and getting the environmental review board up and running so we can get some of the changes done earlier. I think the biggest thing we have to make sure we do is we maintain the character of Apex as it's been historically, and especially in the downtown area, and we're really mindful as we grow and as properties flip over to keep that sort of small town feel and character. It's about Salem Street, it's about the water towers around here, it's about the church, it's about just the overall feel, the way you get when you walk down the road. So that's the most important thing. Around that, we're going to have more residential, we're going to have newer developments, and we have to try to keep, when we do these developments, we have to make sure they're done in an environmentally mindful way, that we're keeping trees where we can, that we're putting tree-lined streets, that we're, also another big issue is affordable housing, and there's a lot of elements to that. It's about bringing up more affordable units online, and also keeping the affordable units we have from flipping over and being demolished and building, a big mansion on it. So that should be avoided. So in terms of, I know you mentioned bedroom community, and the fact is it's primarily a place where people live and then commute to other places, whether it's RTP or Raleigh, and attracting businesses is kind of the solution to that, I guess. When we have an economic development director, and I support her work to do that, I think it's important to keep in mind that pretty much every town in the area also has this vision of not being a bedroom community, and they're all trying to do this, so we can't kind of count on that. We have to sort of also plan for the reality of what's on the ground today and do development in the right way. Limiting growth, I don't think there should be an explicit kind of barometer for what growth should be, but I think if you take as a whole kind of the things I'm proposing, the net effect is going to be growth is going to have to be done in a more controlled and scalable way, I think. You have to be kind of mindful of the legal implications of saying we're going to stop growth or limit growth explicitly. You really can't do that. People have property rights that you have to be ready for. But I think if you put a set of processes and rules in place that make sure development is done a certain way, it's going to necessarily result in a different type of product, which may take longer to develop. And in particular, like, we have infrastructure issues in Western Apex. I live in Western Apex, and the way the regulatory environment we're in is we can't pass ordinances which require developers to contribute to roads and to schools and all these other things. And sort of the what's resulted is we've just sort of stopped collecting those fees, but we're still building out there, and we end up with roads that can't sustain the growth that we have, and we end up with schools that are a little crowded, and there's really, the only thing we can do about that until we have a change at the state level and the laws that we have is to start considering more the impact these developments have on the surrounding infrastructure. And I think that also is going to have an impact on growth, but again, limiting growth isn't the explicit goal. The goal is to make sure that we grow in a responsible way that's supported by the surrounding infrastructure.
Small town feel, that's I think it means a little something different to all of us, right? There's one particular thing that all of us might pick out. One thing right here behind me is the old number 1 fire station downtown Apex. When I think of small town America, I think of the fire station being downtown. There was some talk recently about possibly getting rid of it, and I absolutely don't think we should get rid of the fire station downtown. Revamp it, rebuild it, yeah, but get rid of it, no, I don't think that fits in with a small town charm. I went through a town, I was on the way to Myrtle Beach this summer for my son's baseball tournament, and I went through a small town that reminded me a lot of Apex in the early and mid 90s. In downtown there was nothing going on. The buildings were boarded up. There was no people moving, no car. I mean, I might have been the only car that went through the whole stretch of downtown. So with growth and development brings what we see downtown Apex today, right? There was a time, like I said, early 90s, mid 90s, when I moved to Apex, that downtown was not what it is today. So there's challenges with growth. and managing that growth, but it also brings economic activity and a vibrant downtown like we have now?
I'd like to say all of the above. I think all of those have a place in Apex. My biggest concern is I want us just to be very thoughtful and planful as we grow. I think all of those aspects have a place in Apex. But with housing development, before I approve anymore or vote for more housing developments, I do want to make sure we have a place for our school kids to go to school. So I think it's very important to plan thoughtfully with our school board and county commission to make sure our schools are adequately funded so we can maybe better address crowded schools. Well, we do have room to grow in Western Apex, so I do think we will grow, but as I said earlier, I want us just to be very thoughtful and planful about housing development. Housing affordability is a big concern in Apex, so I do want to make sure that we are conscientious about how we're going to integrate affordable housing as we grow. And when I say affordable housing, I mean I want people of different incomes to be able to afford to live in Apex if they want to. And that means, you know, young people starting out, young families, growing families, our seniors, but also people who work in Apex, you know, our retail workers, our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers. So I do want us to integrate that into our thoughts about housing development as we grow. But another part of growth, I think, is our economic development through business development. And I do support that because a lot of our tax base comes from housing development, and I'd like to see a little more of a shift to help us grow small businesses, and like our Cash Corporate Center, which is being developed. I support that because that's going to draw some good paying jobs to Apex.